Dear students, I am Prabhat Dubey, your BSc teacher from LPM Public School Gola. As we have started the first chapter of your BSc syllabus, that is nature and purpose of business, as it is mentioned over here, and we were talking about the advent of trade in India during the ancient period. What were the specific features of the trade, how trade originated, and how it evolved, and how it took the modern shape, what were the shortcomings, and how people were involved in international trade, what were the factors that ignited this foreign trade. Today we will discuss about transport, how the means of transport affected the business and trade. As you know that for a better supply chain, transport is very necessary. If transport facility is good, then the goods will be supplied at a very faster rate. Okay, and if the products are available in the market with timely delivery of the product, it will provide a positive impact to the business. So as it is mentioned over here is transport during the ancient period. I'm not talking about the modern time. In modern time we have airways, but in ancient period water and land was the only two means of transport available at that time. Land transport was very popular because the modern ships were not available at that time, as we have discussed in the previous lectures as well. Okay, so land transport was used at a great extent. Silk route, spice route, as we discussed, that was used for the supply of silk from China to different nations, and spices that were produced in the peninsular region of India, especially Kerala and southern states. The route that was used for supplying the spices of South India to European nations was called spice route. And later the travelers tried to find out a more specific route without any hindrance through oceans, and that led to discovery of America. The travelers thought that they are searching a new route to India, and they migrated towards America, and a new nation came into existence. Okay, so the trade relations and the business environment owe at a great extent to the travelers who were financed by the rulers and the trade communities, people who were very proficient in sea travelings. They were migrating to different nations across oceans and establishing trade relations, like Marco Polo, Vasco da Gama, Ibn Battuta. All these travelers provided an impetus to foreign trade. They connected nations because there was lack of air transport, so connectivity was not that much efficient to establish a trade relation. Nowadays you can expect that a person living in India goes to attend a meeting in Singapore in the morning, and at night there is a meeting in Delhi. He is attending both the meets. So air transport has made things very easy, but in ancient period the speed of transport was very low. That's why it took great time to carry goods from one place to another place. Our speed in the ocean was also low because the wooden ships were used. Speed was also low. Nowadays modern machines are used that are driving the ships, so speed is high even in the ocean. As you know that the supply of perishable goods like vegetables, fruits and processed food materials have very low shelf life. Shelf life means how long can you store a particular food item, like vegetable. Suppose if vegetable is coming out of the field, you can store it for 3 to 4 days. In refrigeration, what to talk about the normal conditions. So if the supply chain is not efficient and you are taking too long to supply the vegetable and fruits from one place to another place, it will be devastated in the supply chain, and when the time will come to deliver the product to the customer, the fruit and the vegetable would not be in a proper stage, not fit for use, not fit to take it as your breakfast, lunch or dinner, because you are not providing the refrigeration. That's why in modern scenarios, the moment any fruit and vegetable comes out from the field, refrigerated storehouse, mobile vans are there that provide the refrigerated facilities. Like strawberries are very sensitive to temperature, so the moment it is plucked from the plant, it is stored in the refrigerated vans. Okay, so these things have made the supply chain very efficient in current scenario. So land transport was very much in fashion. After that, waterway transport was the cheapest medium of transport, but it was not that much famous because waterways are required for transport, and in every Indian states connectivity through waterways is not available. In some states like Kerala, West Bengal, Northeast, there are waterways, canals are there, rivers are there, but every river is not perennial. Some rivers have depth during the monsoon season, but after monsoon they become very shallow, so it is not easy to navigate, supply the goods through that river. But Hooghly river, that is in West Bengal, is a perennial river. That's why the Kolkata port was very famous for supply of goods. It was a major trade center because Hooghly river and Bay of Bengal both were providing a positive scenario to the trade from Kolkata. Hooghly river was a perennial river and it was connected to different canals. That's why the goods were supplied to different nations through waterways, oceans, and for the inner movement of, for the inner supply of goods, the Hooghly river and canals were used. Okay, so Kolkata was a port that was fulfilling the needs of domestic customers as well as overseas customers. That's why there were some very popular trade centers, like in the peninsular region of India, the latter half part that is covered by sea from at least one end, at least from one side sea is there. So sea connectivity is the plus factor, is a positive factor that induces foreign trade. If sea connectivity is there, your cost of supply will be going down at a very fast rate, because land transport is costly. If you compare the cost of supplying goods through land and through sea routes, you will analyze that sea route using waterways is the cheapest source of transport. So both these factors, supply of goods from land and waterway, were used in ancient India. And now we will study about the trading communities. As you know that since early age there are some specific type of communities who have developed remarkable interest and proficiency in business. As in your book it is mentioned that in northern regions like Punjab and Multan, there were Sikh communities, Jats, who were very proficient in business handling. In western India, Mahajans were managing trades. This name is also popular nowadays, like Marwaris in Rajasthan. It is a popular saying that Marwari can reach any region at any place, and even without any capital they can start business through borrowings, because business is in their genetic structure, business is in their DNA. So a Marwari is a businessman by birth. That's why they are having an edge over others. From south, Chettiars. In southern region, Chettiar is a community who are also well versed in the trade. Gujarat, Rajasthan, in Gujarat and Rajasthan, there is a specific community named as Bhatts. They are also a leading business house. Bhatts are doing a very remarkable trade activities in Gujarat and Rajasthan. And when we talk about the urban centers, we are not talking about rural centers. Mahajan communities are representing Seths. As we know that there is a superior person who is leading a community, who is called Seth, and there are different people who are supporting that Seth. They are representing that Seth, just like banks. There is a head office of SBI in Mumbai, and there are different branches in other states, other districts. In same pattern, Seth was located at the main trade center, and there were different representatives who were connected to the Seth, and they were doing business from their own locality, and from that locality every business was recorded, and the Seth was monitoring all the activities that were doing on his name. Okay, in that way tax was also given to the king, and these Seth were associated with the kings. They were paying taxes to the king, and the kings provided patronage and all type of trading facilities to these Seth. They were acting as a mediator, as we discussed during the advent of banking facilities through informal chain of different mediators, agents, and bankers. Okay, so now we will come to major trade centers. As we know that there were some cities in ancient India as well that were having an edge over others. They were the trade centers because of the location, okay, geographical climate, and connectivity to other states, indigenous supply of raw materials, availability of skilled workforce. All these things provided these trade centers an edge over others. So they were major trade centers of ancient India. The name Patliputra, Peshawar, Takshashila, Indraprasth, Mathura, Varanasi, Mithila, Ujjain, Surat, Kanchi, Madurai, Kaveri and Tambralepti. These are the places of, some of these places are present in North India. As Patliputra in Bihar was very famous during ancient period. It was the capital of different renowned kingdoms as well. Nanda kingdom, Maurya empire was very famous, and they are known for the ancient trade as well. Mathura, as you know that the birthplace of Lord Krishna, is also very famous for the cottage industries, for textile. Varanasi, it was the main trade center of silk and different types of cloth. Mithila of Bihar, Mithila was the birthplace of goddess Sita. Ujjain in Madhya Pradesh. Surat is popular till now for textile and diamonds. Kanchi, Madurai, Kaveri Patta and Tamralepti, all these 3-4 places belong to Tamil Nadu. They are the main trade centers that was very popular. These places were very popular from southern India, the peninsular region. Some are from Coromandel coast and some are from Malabar coast. I think Malabar and Coromandel coast is clear to you. Malabar is the what? South western part of peninsular region of India, like starting from Goa till Tamil Nadu, the coastal area of southeastern India. There were many centers of foreign trade because that places were highlighted by the presence of canals, rivers, and one side was connected to ocean. So these places grew as a center of foreign trade. Manufacturing units were established on these peninsular trade centers due to the availability of raw materials like jute production in West Bengal. West Bengal was one of the main trade center, and it was manufacturing different types of goods and different types of textiles, jute, cotton, were in high demand, and Kolkata was the trade center of producing jute, because water is important. Water is very necessary for processing of jute. So there was availability of water in West Bengal due to the monsoon rains as well, and due to the availability of sea coast, Bay of Bengal is there. That's why the trade of Kolkata grew immensely. Okay, these are the major exports and imports. What were the items that were required to Indian market, and what were the items that were in great demand across the ocean, that were present in India? Following Indian goods like wheat, sugar, indigo, opium, cotton, animal and animal products, peacock. Indian peacock was very popular in Roman aristocracies. So these peacocks were brought to Roman Empire. The Roman ladies were very fond of Indian peacock. Pearls, gems and jewelries, all these items were exported from India to other nations. And India was also requiring some goods from other nations like horses, silk, linen, wine, gold, tin, copper, lead, rubies, amber. All these items were brought to India. Okay, so in this way, the international business started in India since ancient period. Okay, so tomorrow onwards, we will start discussing the position of Indian subcontinent in world economy. Okay, thanks.